Hey, good morning. This is Richard Hsu, host of Hsu Untied. This morning, I'm really pleased to have with me as my guest John Wayne Horton, who's a partner at Lowenstein Sandler. John, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Richard. Happy to be here.
So, John, let me ask you about your undergraduate major, one of the more interesting majors I come across, at least among lawyers. You were a math and music major at Stanford. Tell me a little bit how you chose that major.
Yeah, it's funny. I haven't gotten to talk about that in a long time. So most of my law discussions with lawyers are about the law. So this is exciting for me, and talking to someone with a tech background like you. But
Yeah.
I grew up in Seattle, kind of a white predominantly white farm town. Couldn't wait to kind of get out of there and see a little more of the world and diversity and culture, and that led me to Stanford for undergrad. And so I'm still a West Coaster, so not a lot of time out east, or other places, but definitely found a great home in Palo Alto area, seeing blue sky in the winter. But I came to Stanford. I didn't have a ton of direction. I had a lot of interests. I'd always been a great jazz piano player. And that was kind of maybe my special thing or whatever, in high school and through that. And my mom loved it. She'd take me to piano stores to play and, and amuse her, I guess.
Oh,
But
interesting.
but I went to Stanford, not knowing what I wanted to do. I thought maybe electrical engineering.
Uh-huh.
And so I continued to take kind of the required courses, English literature, math, and I took some fun stuff, music. And because I figured I needed to kind of just do a wide range of things, and so that's always been my kind of approach. And I realized at some point, um, music's not why I want to, it's a great fun thing to do and interesting. At Stanford, they invented the Yamaha synthesizer, and I was part of that group up at Karma, the Center for Computer Research in Music and Acoustics.
Hmm.
Uh, um, and so that was neat to be a part of that. And I did studio recording, acoustics, computer composition. But at the same time, I kind of thought, I don't want to be at Stanford and miss out on a rigorous academic experience. And so I'd been doing math all along just because I thought I was supposed to. But it got to a pretty high level where it was very challenging
Hmm.
for me, at least. And I think they made it that way because there are some super smart people that they have to challenge as well. So it was an eye-opening experience for me. Um, and I took it as a challenge. It wasn't something that I'd always been good at it, but now I wasn't. There were a lot better people at math.
Hmm.
Class sizes were shrinking, and I had a minor basically racked up in credits, and so I thought, well, I might as well double down the last 4 quarters or whatever, 5 quarters, and get a double major. So I don't know why I was so ambitious, but maybe that's
Oh,
why
interesting.
I'm a good
So you
lawyer.
actually double majored in music and math. It wasn't like there was a music and math major, because I couldn't tell from your LinkedIn whether that was
Yeah,
like a combined major, but you actually majored in both two
there was a
majors.
I believe Stanford. My degree is a Bachelor of Arts and Sciences, and I
Hmm.
believe I believe maybe I was a credit short of having a Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Arts,
Hmm.
2 degrees. So it
Hmm.
is 1 degree, but it was with 2 majors,
Wow,
which was
interesting.
perfectly fine for me, and especially given that those 2 degrees had no real direction for me coming out of college.
So amazing. Well, tell me how advanced did your math go? Like what were some of the harder math classes you took? I'm always curious to know how far people go in
Yeah,
math.
it got pretty abstract. There was chaos theory, there was differential geometry, curves and surfaces. There was, things that you would never need in practical life, right? I mean, there's of course all the calculus and advanced calculus,
Yeah, of
some of the
course.
algebra, some of the theoretical algebra was very difficult for me at least.
Hmm.
But you get into proving the theorems that you used in algebra and and geometry, all um, I remember the final exam in math was a written paper, and it wasn't like prose; it was a
Right,
theorem
right.
or a proof of a theorem. Um, and
Hmm.
I don't remember if it was 20 or 30 pages. Like it was very difficult, and I remember people were in office hours trying to get help like directionally, and I was certainly one of those people. But I'd taken math and music because I knew that I didn't like pushing paper. I didn't want to read and write for a living. Ironically, that's exactly where,
Yeah,
I
right.
ended up.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Well, how about your music? What kinds of stuff did you do music? Did you compose? Did you just play? Did you do other instruments? What, tell me about your music major there.
Yeah, I was predominantly I was mostly piano throughout my life as far as performance. I did
Mhm.
some kind of percussion stuff, vibraphone, and I played guitar in like a camp one summer, that kind of like fundamental stuff. But I was very good at piano at least at the time, and so I was part of the Stanford Jazz Orchestra
Mm,
when I was there. That was an amazing experience. Great players. We had like special guest stars every quarter. Louis Bellson, Pete Chrisley, like these kind of like big deal players that came and performed.
mm,
So that was actually looking back, it was a special opportunity that I probably couldn't have had a lot of places. We did a recording in 98, 99. And we toured Europe the summer of 2009, 2000, I think,
wow.
around there. But Louis
Wow.
Bellston is like, amazing, like lifetime achieving drummer who played with us. We went to Montreux Jazz Festival, Rotterdam, and North Sea Jazz Festival in Rotterdam.
Hmm.
I think Diana Krall played on the same stage as us later that night. That was a really neat. Now that I think about it,
Hmm.
um,
Well,
but that
you
was kind of my
definitely,
performance side.
yeah. Well, you definitely got to use your right brain and your left brain. It sounds like both simultaneously.
Yeah, yeah, and I remember having conversations as far back as high school about, musicians are typically people that are good at math are good at music and vice versa. So I think that's very true. I don't I haven't like personally read the studies on this. Maybe you know more, but I know they're out there. I think a lot of that kind of the way you think about music and notes is very mathematical and in a lot of ways,
Hmm,
intervals,
hmm, hmm,
chords,
hmm. Well, did you
and
find that was true? Were a lot of math majors good in music, and were the music majors good in math? I mean, what was your experience with that?
I don't know at that level, at Stanford, for example, my math graduating class was probably, gosh, I want to say like 20 people or for 10 or something. Like there weren't a lot of
Really?
people
Oh,
walking in the earth joining that little ceremony we had. There were a couple of females, mostly men.
yeah, right.
I partnered up with she was a year behind me, but she and I studied a lot together, and it was great to have somebody interesting she was more of an actress in that kind of arts, but she wasn't a
Huh,
musician.
huh, interesting.
But yeah, I don't know that I saw it all the time, but I'm sure that it maybe just kind of people don't kind of tap that musical side sometimes unless they know, or like have my mom to like inspire them to go take lessons, or
Yeah, yeah,
um
yeah.
yeah.
But I'm guessing when you were a kid, you were always good at music and math. I'm assuming, right? I mean, you were good at both of them all throughout high school and grade school.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't, I wasn't forced to practice like I wanted to play. I like to tell people I like to push buttons. My wife will agree. Um, so the piano was a natural fit for me. I did like it. I just did it. I think I like to do things that I'm good at.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if I know that I'm not gonna be good at it, I can tell, then I will probably abandon that and hire
yeah,
somebody to do it
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
me.
Well, tell me, what does one do when you're a math and music major when you get out of college right after a dot-com bust? What does one
Yeah,
do?
exactly. Right. The bubble had just burst. It was '02. It was an awful market. I kind of thought, first of all, I didn't become an electrical engineer, obviously. I took some intro classes in circuit building, and I didn't want to do that. I really enjoyed computer science, but I started too late. I know you
Mhm.
did that, but
Yep,
I wish I'd gotten to do more of that, maybe earlier on instead of as much mathematics focus.
yep.
But for me coming out, it was kind of like, hey, look, I have a great network. Stanford's a good place to be. I don't take that for granted. And I should be able to do something. I think math shows that I'm smart. I can learn
Hmm.
stuff.
Hmm.
And so, I applied to the NSA as a code breaker. I don't think my grades were good enough, probably why I didn't
Interesting.
proceed very far.
Huh.
Um, I don't know where that would have led, that's odd, but would have been interesting and neat. Um, and so, I thought maybe investment banking, but I didn't have the internships. I'd worked at a recording studio one summer, but that wasn't getting me like a job that could pay the bills in the Bay Area. Um, so, my undergrad job was at Stanford Law School. I would lock up the rooms at night and count the Aeron chairs and make sure everything was in order. it's ridiculous, but it actually was like a pretty fun experience just getting to interact with people, students, faculty.
Uh-huh.
Um, and when I graduated, they kind of said, "Hey, we could use someone full time to run facilities on an interim basis until we find the right director, you know."
Uh-huh.
And so I said, "Sure, sign me up.
Yeah.
I'm here." And it was great. I got to know the dean of the law school, the dean of admissions. You know, I'd sit in on some classes and panels, um, and I loved it. Like a lot of the students, I love how they would, you know, the discourse and how they'd argue about things. I thought, you can get paid for this. I love this. Um, so that was kind of my segue. I had I did a couple things. I worked at Google for a few months before they went public. You know,
Huh.
that would have changed my course entirely if I'd stayed. I was in AdWords, and they were, you know, it was approved, disapproved, family safe, you know, kind of these self-submit ads, and we had to know all the rules. And I think they had automated all this through software, so it was kind of a testing ground probably for employees hires.
Huh. Huh.
But it was fun. The Grateful Dead chefs were cooking us lobster at lunch, and we were giving out lava lamps and T-shirts, you know, on Fridays, and like fun times, you know, no doubt. Google would have changed a lot of things for me. Certainly not law school
Yeah,
bound if I'd stayed,
right.
but um, but yeah, I think working at Stanford Law School, I said, hey, let me try this, make sure that, you know, the law is something I want to do. So I became a paralegal at Cooley. I was in the
Mm.
mergers acquisitions practice group. So I did that for maybe a little over 3 years. Um, I liked the deal work.
Mm.
I was never really interested in litigation or courtroom battles. I like kind of the more like the chess, the strategic negotiation side of it, and that appealed to me watching some of these great lawyers work.
Hmm.
Uh, so that was kind of my hey, look, this I know what this is all about. I know what I'm getting into if I go to a law firm. So naturally, I should get paid more and have more responsibility. And
Yeah.
so law school for me was the next step, and that was a full-time kind of job to get to where I'm at now.
Yeah, interesting. So I take it you liked law school and you went to law school with a very specific purpose, right? Because you kind of knew you wanted to do corporate. Is that kind of the thinking?
That's right. You know, I knew I wanted to be in the Bay Area.
Right.
You know, I ended up going to Santa Clara Law, which was kind of a mini Stanford, and you know, in the same, you know, same area here in Bay Area.
Yeah.
Great tech IP program, and in the heart of Silicon Valley. So that was more like an adult. I was a little older. I wasn't very fresh out of school. I was 5 years out, and so
Yeah.
I took that as kind of a like full-time job, but kind of go home, do my thing and get done. And you know, I had a great internship experience at eBay, and the first summer I was at Cooley as a summer associate. The next year, I ended up
Mm.
starting at Hogan Lovells,
Hmm.
and in their somewhat new or it was Palo Alto at the time, Silicon Valley satellite office. And so that was interesting. It was great. I worked really closely with partners there. Um, you know, at a Goliath international firm, great experience, high quality work. And
Yeah.
it really kind of solidified for me. Like, I don't just want to do M&A. I want to do kind of a general corporate practice, which is what I do. And it's very
Mm.
um, tech
Mm.
focused, Silicon Valley, typical kind of, you know, emerging companies, startup work.
Yeah, yeah. So is that what you're focused now on, mostly startups? Is that what you do mostly, or you still do some big time M&A, or what is kind of your practice now?
Yeah, I mean, I've done some larger M&A in my career for sure. I'm not doing IPOs anymore though. You know, capital markets, they're certainly better securities lawyers and public lawyers than me. So my focus now is definitely become emerging growth, emerging companies, and venture capital.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so if my clients, you know, are doing an M&A deal, of course I would love to be involved in that, and I like to shepherd them through their entire life cycle process. So that's kind of where I fall in now. I like the kind of, you know, meeting these younger founders, guiding them, being available as a first point of you know, phone call or issues, even business issues. You know, I like kind of helping where I can and watching these companies grow.
Totally. How do you scratch your musical itch? Do you still play in a band or anything? Do you do anything recreationally with music wise?
Yeah, you know, I'm not actively in a band. I definitely have a piano around the house and like to play. It'll
Uh-huh.
probably be more like we're hosting people or a party, and you know, people will be sitting around and I'll noodle around and play, and then it turns into something else or whatever. I got my wife a guitar for birthday this past year.
Oh.
So I'm hoping she's really wanted one. I'm hoping she learns, and maybe I'll try to learn one when she's taking lessons or something.
You don't play any other instruments other than the piano? You don't play guitar or anything, or?
I'm not. No, I can play like my one or two songs, and
Oh,
I think I probably could learn it. I just feel like I
yeah,
have so
I
much else
think
going on. It's
yeah,
hard
yeah,
for time as
yeah, I
is.
totally get it. Could you solve differential equations today?
I don't think so. I wouldn't bet on it. You know, it comes in handy when I'm, doing capitalization tables and Excel sheets and I think honestly like the two most important things in like kind of transactional corporate work I do, it comes down to numbers, dollars and share numbers,
Yeah, right.
and then voting power, which is also like an analysis of shares. And so
Yeah,
like I tell my associates, don't screw these two things up, right? These are the most important things we deal with, and the math is super helpful. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
will look at pro forma cap tables, and I will look over the waterfall, and I sometimes I'll spot things just because of like I'm kind of numbers oriented.
yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. Well, John, this has been a fascinating conversation. I really appreciate your sharing the story. I love hearing about how science and math majors become lawyers like myself, and I really appreciate your taking the time to share it with me.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. You're
This is
welcome.
Richard Hsu and John Wayne Horton. Thanks.